What's up, y'all? Rome here. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they're laying bricks every hour. I just wanted to share kind of my one of the stories in my life that changed the trajectory and the direction of my life when I was a young person. Uh, I'm gonna stick to this story in this day, and it will give me the ability to kind of share things that happened before that and what led up to that, and also stories that happened after that, and kind of the direction that my life took. But as a young kid, a teenager specifically, I had struggled with a lot of things growing up. There's some things that I had walked through that had brought me up to this point in my life, and I was 16 years old. And I had already been put on probation by this time in my life because I had did some other things prior to this day and night. So bear with me as I tell this story. I don't agree with the things that I was doing at that age. So this is not something I would recommend that young kids do with their life, and the direction that I was headed in and the things I was involved in as a young person. But hey, I just appreciate you checking out my story. Like, share, comment, follow, share this with a young person. I'm a youth advocate. I work with young people. The last 21 years I've been working with young people. Since this happened to me, this particular story I'm about to tell you, I've been working with young people since then. So anyway, check it out. My name's Jerome Nicasio, born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this was age 16. I had dropped out of school this year as well. I had the intentions of going back or getting my GED at the time, but I was just a lost young person. I didn't really have a good relationship with my parents at the time because what I was doing with my life. I didn't have any positive relationships in my life at this age. At 16, I had struggled with suicide. I had struggled with self-worth, and I didn't keep good company at the time. You know, I was involved in drugs, doing drugs. Taking drugs and selling drugs. So this particular year in my life, it was definitely going around the wrong path. I was definitely, I felt like I was either gonna die from my decisions or someone might take my life, sorry. But this night, I'm gonna be as truthful as I can with what was taking place in my life to show you what I was doing. But I don't at all approve of what I was doing, again, just to throw that out there for anybody who will hear this story. I'm not glorifying the life I was living or glorifying that type of lifestyle, but I do work with kids from that lifestyle now. I do work with young ladies and young men trying to get out of that lifestyle or that mindset. So at this time in my life, I was on probation, as I said, and I was struggling with my mental health, and I was struggling with my spiritual health. And because of the drugs and the late nights and not eating healthy as a young person, my physical body was taking a turn too. I remember leading up to me dropping out and talking to the counselor. She had recognized that I didn't look healthy physically, my skin color, but I had a lot of late nights, and they weren't healthy nights because you stay up hanging out with people, smoking and drinking. But this was a similar night to like those other past nights, but I was with my brother. Me and my younger brother started hanging out a little bit more often. I have three brothers. I'm one of the middle children. And in being the middle child, you kind of get closer to one of your brothers depending on your age. So me and Gabriel started hanging out a little bit more, and this night we were smoking and drinking. We were drinking a lot this night. I remember he had got some tequila. I had got some Hennessy. I had also got a 12-pack of Budweiser. I had kept weed on me all the time. You know, we would smoke. But I was at the time, at this age, I was selling crack cocaine, which I'm not proud of at all. It's something. It's one of those moments of rebuilding, but rebuilding from a regretful moment I had in the past that I was involved in. So. I was selling dope this night as a young person, and I was making a lot of good money. But again, I was lost inside of me, and in my mind, I wasn't happy with who I've become. So I would drink more and I would smoke more, just trying to numb the pain and forget about what I was becoming. I had no healthy relationships, even with friendships. me and my brothers were okay, but it was that even wasn't healthy, you know, us fighting sometimes. And I didn't have no female friendships that were solid at the time. So, you know, I felt alone in this world, and I was doing things that pushed me away from the people that did love me, that did want to see me do good. But as we were drinking this night, it just continued until I kind of got to the point where I felt like I made enough money that night. It was getting late. Me and my brother had lived in separate homes. Two brothers lived with my dad, and two brothers lived with my mom. And so my brother would drive him home, which he lived up the road, up the hill. If you take Dead Man's Curve back up to the west side of town, it would put you in the back neighborhood where my dad lived. And two of my brothers lived with my dad, and me and my other brother were gonna reside with my mom in the South Valley. So, you know, on the way to take him home, I kind of hit the curb. I knew I was getting I was too tipsy. So he's like, let me drive home. And so he drove the rest of the way home. It dropped him off. My dad checked on me. He's like, hey, my dad was there at the time. He's like, hey, you good? And I was like, yeah. Excuse me. He's like, are you good? And I was like, yeah. And then I used the restroom, and I hopped in the car, turned on my music, rolled the windows down, riding through the neighborhood. I was very reckless. I would always drive down neighborhood streets I shouldn't have been on. What you could say they were opposition because some things had happened, not just to me but to my brother and the lifestyle my brothers were living. But I'd always burn down certain streets just to kind of let people know, you know, recklessly that I was out here. But as I was driving down, I was speeding really fast, and it was a residential block. So going down this street, and then it came another street, and this street was filled with houses. So I was going at least 65, 70 miles just burning through this street like nothing. And by the time I saw the stop sign and having too much alcohol in my system, you know, as it slows down your ability to move at the same normal speed as if you weren't inebriated. But I remember trying to brake and hit my brakes, but I was going so fast that I went flying into the driveway of this house and hit the car in the driveway. And it happened really quick because that car, as soon as I hit it, boom, just like, you know, it's an accident, but the car went flying into the house. Crazy enough, sadly enough, I had caused this horrific accident. And I didn't just endanger the people in the house, you know, I endangered the community. And I put myself in harm's way. And the airbags deployed, and me being on the inside of the vehicle with no seatbelt, I didn't have a shirt on either, and I only had I kept protection on me, and I kept my phone on me, and I put them both in my lap, just because the lifestyle I was living at this moment. Not that I was just some crazy person out here wielding a gun or hurting people, but because the lifestyle of selling drugs and certain people, it's a really evil, dark community. There can never be no trust in that lifestyle just because it's death, it's destruction. But back to the story, as the airbags deployed, I hit the airbag so hard it busted and burned my upper face and my upper body. Instantly busted my mouth open from the top and bottom as my teeth went through. The airbag material in my face just completely burned it from this side up top, and burned right here where the airbags hit as I hit the airbag. That's the only thing that stopped me from going through the windshield. And as I came into realization that I just got into a wreck, I remember thinking that I had to run from the scene, because now I'm sitting in a driveway with their car sitting halfway in their house, and I have drugs in the car. I have open alcohol containers. I have a gun on me. I have just like, it's not a good situation to be in, me breaking the law at that young age. In my head, I just knew to run. So as I get out, my gun and phone drops, and I see so much blood just gushing from my mouth. And I was panicking on the inside as adrenaline was rushing through, and just the voice in my head saying, run, just keep running. And crazy story, because as I run through the yard, I I remember jumping the fence and kind of landing on the sidewalk, but stumbling. And in my head, I'm just like, run, run. And as I'm running down this street, I realize there's a cop parked in his car, but facing me. So he was parked on the wrong side, but facing me as this whole thing just transpired before him. And he doesn't even budge to jump out. Like, I just remember seeing him making eye contact, and we both realized what just happened. And he told me to put my hands on his vehicle, and I did. As I walked up, I recall blood still coming out of my mouth, but it was a lot, because I was kind of panicking on the inside, like, man, I've never had this much blood leave my body this quick. And my hands are on his car, and I'm just kind of dazed, and gotta remember, like, I just got in an accident. I've been drinking alcohol and doing drugs, and living a pretty fast life for a young person, when I should have been at home, tucked in my bed, getting ready for school the next day. But the cop told me to sit on the ground. He said, sit on the ground. And when I went to see it, I ended up just going back and laying down. And I passed out. I passed out on the curb on that street that night. And when I passed out, I was very calm. It was just the sound of the car going off from the accident, that horn that goes off, and it's just blaring through the street, but nothing else. It's the horn and the sky, and it was a clear sky that night. And I remember passing out, and it was a crazy moment, because I dreamed, but it was also chaos around me, because when I woke up, believe it or not, it was SWAT that had woke me up. They were using those little smelly things. I don't know what they call them, but they put it in my nose to wake me up. And as I'm waking up, I'm waking up to police everywhere, ambulances, SWAT, and the helicopter, I guess Albuquerque Police Department helicopter. It was up, and the light was right on me and on the situation that had taken place. And I remember the SWAT grabbing me so hard, and he was shaking me, and he was yelling at me, asking me, where's everybody else at? Where are they at? But he was using crazy language, foul language, because he had assumed that I was a car full of other people. But it was just me that night. So as he kept telling me, where are they at? Where are they at? Where'd they go? Which way did they go? Where were you headed? I said, I was by myself. He goes, well, whose stuff is that in the car? I was like, that's all my stuff. He goes, whose car is this? So I was like, well, it's my mom's. I stole it. It's my stuff in there. She don't know I'm out here. I'm lying. I'm still lying. And going with this whole charade of this whole corrupted, bad life. But I remember ambulances trying to calm SWAT down, because, like, I've been bleeding from my mouth. At this point, I could barely talk, because I woke up and it was pretty swelled up, and it was extreme painful. I've never been through something like that, so in hurting my body physically. But as I was getting arrested and people were asking me questions, I kept telling them I didn't want to answer no questions. I just told them, hey, I stole it. No one else was with me. What's in the car is mine, and I'm done talking. That's it. That's it. I'm not talking, because it was hurting to talk. And so they took me to the hospital that night. I remember going to the UNM hospital, because they were checking out how badly hurt I was. And I started sobering up and realizing, man, my life's over. Because prior to this, I had seen my PO, my probation officer, and I remember them warning me, if I get caught up doing something again, I'm going to end up getting violated and having to serve my 2 years of probation that I was already on. I was on 2 years probation for some prior crimes I had committed. And so I was already on probation, and I was already on a tightrope, because I had already kind of been caught up around the neighborhood by my PO and other officers. So this night I knew it was over, and I kind of felt also a relief that I'm finally done running from myself or whatever I was. I'm finally done running from, like I felt like I was just running, and I was running to the wrong things, and I felt like that was over. Like, I could finally just be done. I felt like, yeah, the world, society, the justice system, my family, yeah, it's time for them to throw me away and lock me up. I'm no convenience to society. I don't contribute in a healthy way in school, in my home. And I was broken on the inside. You know, there's some things that happened to me as I was growing up. I was kind of still dealing with that. And as I was sobering up, you know, I realized I was going to be locked up now for a little bit. And they take me to the juvenile detention center in Albuquerque. I remember it was the middle of the night. And if you've ever been, those of you who've been locked up in juvenile detention, you know it's cold, man. The streets are cold. Being locked up is a cold feeling and environment. But I felt like this is where I belong because what I've done, and I could have killed somebody that night in that home when I hit that car. And just driving under the influence, drinking and driving is dangerous alone. Albuquerque has very strict laws on it. So that's how that night ended, with me going to the D home that night. Thank God, man, the workers in there, they let me sleep in because I was in extreme pain when I woke up. I knew I was going to be hurting because the alcohol was wearing off, and I have not yet consumed any food to help me sober up, or soak up the alcohol in my stomach. Man, it was a crazy night because I remember sleeping and I didn't have a roommate. They put me in a cell by myself. And it was probably like before lunch, they finally let me, like, I skipped breakfast. I skipped a whole lot because it was lunchtime. And I remember them looking at me in the daytime, and everybody kind of looking at my face and looking at me like, damn, like, sorry, but like looking at my face like, man, his face is really tore up. Like, when you know you have something on your face and people look at you but don't tell you, like, it was like that. It was that bad. But yeah, man, it changed my life that night because being locked up, having that happen to my face and body, I had to walk through that for the next several months. My first meals were actually blended food. They blended my food and they put it in a bowl. This is me, 16 years old, locked up. Because of my mouth was so messed up, they would blend my food and they put a straw in it. Real story, they put a straw in it. And over time, I began to just eat the food out of the straw, or I'd eat it like soup. And just because I couldn't really chew anything, my mouth had to heal on its own. Throughout time, I would scrub my face to get there was this substance that came out of the airbags that kind of got into all my skin. And in the detention center, there is no mirrors. They're just like these aluminum plates, so you can't really make out your profile very well. Being locked up there and going on that journey changed my life after that, because I was locked up. They were now trying to get me to serve 4 years because what I did that night, plus the 2 years I already had. So I knew my PO was going to go hard for it. We didn't get along to begin with, me and my PO. We weren't in a very encouraging relationship. You know, it wasn't like, hey, have a good day at work. And she was never like, hey, do good out there. You know, it was always friction with me and her, and the other guy she would bring. But yeah, when I went to see the judge, he said, you got to serve out that 2 years. And if you do good in your 2 years, we'll put the other 2 years on our probation period. And so I started serving my time in the juvenile detention center, and getting put in different placements as they would test me to see what was going on with my psyche. They did a psych eval, they did a physical evaluation, and then you start going through the process of trying to get services you may need. So that's another story for another time, but I just wanted to kind of share that story, what I went through that night, because it was definitely, looking back, I was a crash out. You know, I did crash out. I didn't know my value. My value was completely demolished from what I involved myself in. My mental health was completely shot. My spiritual health, I had believed in God, but I just felt I was so bad that I didn't deserve to be in his presence or to seek him or know him or even say a prayer to him. But you guys know what it's like being out there in the dark places and us still saying prayers, you know, those sinful prayers, but still trying to reach out to him for rescue or something, you know. So I did have to go through that time in my life, and I'm glad I didn't kill nobody, and I'm glad I made it out. Obviously, my mouth healed. There is a little bit of scarring in a few different places. Um, uh, uh, my whole inside of my mouth cured. A little, those, how scars heal, but you could feel that it's a scar. But some amazing things did happen while I was locked up, and I gotta tell you about those. That's a whole different story. But thank you for listening to my story. That was a moment in my life that I chose to use that to change the direction of my life. And I'll tell you how I did that while being locked up, was starting that process of changing. Because the first thing you have to do is look at yourself, look in the mirror, dive deep within yourself. Even as a young person must look at themselves in the mirror and decide who they're going to be, which road they're going to take, how long do they want to stay in a certain environment, how long do they want to stay captive in their mind to certain things that are not really real, or captive to the past, or not even captive, but just it feels like there could be good out there, but it's hard because you feel like you're not good enough to enjoy the good things in the life. Because when you're in a dark place, sometimes you do things and you say things that it wouldn't make your mom proud or your dad proud or somebody. I only really took out my anger out on myself, and then doing drugs and selling drugs. I wasn't in any relationship to kind of take it out on people. I did have fights with my brothers here and there, but boys will be boys sometimes when you have brothers, and you're growing and you're learning how to be strong, but yet not prideful. So I was a young person of pride, and I had to walk through a season of my life of breaking down these bad habits and bad mindsets to get where I am now. And I'm still building them, still really getting into a place where still expanding my mind and my heart, still seeking God at a deep level, still getting educated and learning and growing and reading books and being in circles, environments, and classes where I could help society, help the young people that were like me, which is why you're here listening to this story. Is I chose to start walking a different path and learning how to build beauty out of broken pieces. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day, but they're laying bricks every hour. So even in your worst, even in your brokenness, you got to learn how to build. And some days are long, and some days are hard, and some days are strenuous, and some days it's like you want to give up. But I would just say, if you have anything left in your tank, maybe you don't feel like you do. It's okay to get into an environment that starts filling up your tank, filling up your heart, changing your heart. Especially when you struggle with depression. I had thought about suicide every week at this time of my life. Sometimes I wouldn't even want to go home because I thought if I go home, I'm going to finally do it. Because I would keep a gun under my pillow at my mom's house where I stayed. And I never did it because there was some spiritual beliefs behind it why I didn't do it, and it scared me. So I was like, nah, I don't want to. I was told by my mom growing up that if I killed myself, I would go to hell. And nothing against my mom. She was just, saying her belief and also trying to make sure like I don't ever go down that path of suicide to talk to her. But so I was like, man, I ain't trying to go to hell. I ain't trying to go to hell twice because I felt like I was already in it. I wasn't trying to double back on doing another term in hell. So, but anyway, thank you for checking out my story. Like, comment, follow, or share this with a young person. For the parents who may watch this, I provide services to the teachers and educators throughout this beautiful world. You want to come hear me speak, share my testimony, or hear some prevention methods that we use, how I help kids get the clinical help they may need. They may need to see a psychiatrist, a therapist, a counselor, go into treatment, day treatment, outpatient treatment, inpatient treatment, or they need to get into a program that will help them build structure. They need to try some other activities that will help them think outside the box to grow past some of the things they've been in. So anyway, shout out to all the young people of the world. This is why I'm here, is for you guys. That's my purpose, is to help you build. And some days it's messy, but even messiness has a crazy way. I believe how, if you've ever heard a term from Christians, they say, God can turn your mess into something beautiful. I really believe that. As messy as I was, he's done a pretty good job of helping me and get to a place I am today. So anyway, peace out. Rome wasn't building today. Keep going, y'all.